Authorities in the United Arab Emirates capital say air defenses have intercepted an Iranian missile near the city's largest economic and industrial hub. Officials in Abu Dhabi say falling debris caused minor damage, but no injuries were reported. Let's find out the latest across the Gulf now with Malik, Traina, who's in Kuwait City for us. Let's start with the UAE and what's happening there. What is the impact of this latest Iranian strike?
Well, according to authorities in Abu Dhabi, material damage, no casualties reported near the vicinity of the Khalifa Economic Zone. Just last week, Folly, 6 people were injured due to an interception in that same vicinity. We've seen, alarms going off in Dubai, in Bahrain numerous times. In Saudi Arabia, the Ministry of Defense saying it has intercepted 4 drones in the last couple of hours. And just before that, a ballistic missile. We've seen these attacks, these relentless attacks, since the war has started on the Gulf. Yesterday, we saw the fuel tanker being hit off the coast of Qatar, and here in Kuwait, the international airport.
And tell us more about what's been happening in Kuwait, Malik. The airport, as you say, was attacked again 24 hours ago. What's the latest from there?
Well, there's been increasing concerns that armed groups, factions allied to Iran in Iraq, that attacks have been coming from there. We've seen the recent statements from the Kuwaitis has all been saying that, calling Iranian aggression and groups affiliated with Iran in bordering countries. Kuwait has a border with Iraq. Just earlier today, the U.S. Embassy also sending out warnings here in Kuwait, saying that Iran and its allied terrorist militias may intend to target universities in Kuwait. Iran has specifically threatened American universities, companies, and institutions across the Middle East. Look, Folly, I think people here in the Gulf have all been talking about, President Trump's speech yesterday, saying that, he's going to hit Iran hard in the next 2 to 3 weeks, sending them back to the Stone Age. That worries a lot of people here because the Gulf has bared the brunt of these Iranian retaliation attacks, right? More than 6,000 missiles and drones have targeted the Gulf since this fighting started. He's talked about hitting power stations. That's really concerning. Here in Kuwait, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen commercial ports being hit, the airport. We've also seen the Al Ahmadi refinery being hit. A desalination and power plant was targeted just a couple of days ago. I think it's important to note that Iran said they weren't involved in that. But people get extremely worried when rhetoric rises or these tensions rise. President Trump's threats, because Iran threatens retaliation. But the call has been consistent from the Gulf throughout this entire war: de-escalation, find a diplomatic path towards a long-term solution. I think there was a lot of frustration here when President Trump and Israel started this war by attacking Iran, because Gulf leaders weren't consulted on that. But I think now they definitely want to have an input into how this war ends. With the Strait of Hormuz closed, and they want security guarantees. I think people here, that's the same call. Diplomatic path towards ending this fighting and finding a long-term solution that will bring peace and stability to the entire region, Folly.
Thank you very much for that, Malik. Traina live there in Kuwait City.